The Shark Deck.
Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. With the writer's strike, we're not going to have late night jokes for a while, and I kind of like having them at the top of the show. So luckily there's ChatGPT now and the Late Bot. So when you hear me talking about Late Bot in the upcoming shows, that's who I'm talking about. Late Bot says, Tucker Carlson's texts are like a train wreck. You don't want to look, but you can't help yourself, unless of course you're a Fox News viewer. Tucker Carlson's texts were so offensive they even made Fox News executives blush. I guess they're not used to seeing anything that's not white and conservative. I hope Tucker Carlson's texts have taught us all a valuable lesson. Never trust a man who wears a bow tie. Tucker Carlson's texts have been called juicy and explosive, which is exactly what you expect from a guy who wears a bow tie in 2023. Those aren't terrible. They're not great, but they're not terrible. And I think the writers are justified in being a little worried about the bot, because remember, and people keep explaining this about AI, this is as bad as AI is going to get, right? AI is only going to get better. So imagine Late Bot a year from now when it's really tuned up. One more from Late Bot. Kevin Costner is getting a divorce. I guess he finally found out that Field of Dreams was a warning. If you build it, they will come. And if they come, they'll leave. Saturday Night Live will not produce any episodes for a while. Again, the reason the strike, that means the episode with Pete Davidson has been canceled. They'll be in reruns till further notice. We'll talk about Pete Davidson in the second half of the show. Jay Leno showed up to picket outside the Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, and he began handing out donuts. Jay was warmly met by union members with cries of "Thank you" and "We love you, Jay." John Mulaney has canceled his FYC events, which were to promote Baby J. Mulaney read the WGA strike rules, which forbid promotional events. The WGA's FAQ says you should let the company know you are prohibited from making these promotional appearances about your work until the strike concludes. For the same reason, Jon Stewart canceled an FYC event for the second season of The Problem with Jon Stewart. According to Deadline, Stewart was scheduled for a conversation about the show next week. But there is one late night show still in production, Gutfeld. He didn't cancel. The Daily Beast says an anonymous source told the Daily Beast it's part of a larger anti-union trend at the network. Gutfeld has, quote, some writers, but they're, quote, all non-union like everyone else who works there. Interesting. I watched 3 comedy specials. Let me tell you about them. I watched Lewis Black's Tragically I Need You. It's fine. I just didn't care. It's Lewis Black doing Lewis Black. Lewis Black doing Lewis Black is fine. I'll remind you, I'm an admitted comedy snob. If you're a new listener, I ran SiriusXM Comedy for 10 years. So what did I do there, among other things? I had a radio on my desk playing stand-up comedy for 10 straight years, all day, every day. So my brain is really numb to a lot of this. So Lewis Black special, it's fine. I just didn't care. 13 minutes in, I'm like, all right, what else? I was really excited to watch Greg Warren. I told you about Greg Warren and the peanut butter jokes on yesterday's podcast. I was so excited for it. And I think, now I don't know this, personal opinion, in my opinion, it sounded like they added a laugh track. It was one of those comedy specials where every single sentence he said had a laugh and an unrealistic laugh, and it didn't sound like a normal human being laugh. Greg Warren, you're on my suspect list. Really didn't sound natural. And that turned me off to it. I was like, get me out of here. Then I felt bad. I was like, oh, I had this big plan. Let me tell the listeners about comedy specials. And then I remembered I hadn't watched Big J Oakerson's special, also on YouTube, this one called Dog Belly. And it was interesting. I was never all the way into it, but I was entertained. I was kind of second screening Big J, and I was playing on my phone and Twitter and checking email. And, you know, you have a phone. You know what you do. Well, John, why are you explaining what people do on a phone? You know what you do on a phone. I was doing that. But Big J's special was nice company in the background. As a comedy snob, I really appreciate the crowd work. It shows that he's naturally funny and doing a lot of material in the moments. Yeah, and he'd go back to stuff he clearly had in his back pocket. But the crowd work was wonderful, and it reminded me of how much John Mulaney's special just felt like a performance with a capital P. Some solid laughs in there. I wrote down in my notes, junk food. You know, sometimes you just want a Twinkie or half a box of Oreos. Who would do that? So Big J, it's the half a box of Oreos of comedy specials. Is it amazing? No. Will it make the end of the year list? That's a good question. The other 2 I mentioned are not. Let me look at my list here. So far, number 1, Kyle Kinane, 2, Nate, 3, Jay McBride, 4, Jim Jeffries, 5, Hari, 6, Chris Rock. Is Big J's special better than Chris Rock? No. Is it better than the Roast of Mr. Peanut? No. But should it be on the list? I'm going to say, yeah, let's add it right now. You're hearing this live. Typing in Big J Oakerson. Now at number 8. Live list update. Boy, aren't you glad to download the podcast today? Isn't that exciting? One I have not seen yet, and I love this guy, so can't wait for this one. Jimmy O. Yang, his special is called Guess How Much. You'll find that on Amazon. In Guess How Much, Jimmy O. Yang gives props to the old Asian lady in Chinatown who's been wearing a mask since 1995. She's not random. She's a trailblazer. He says everyone followed her fashion lead. She's the Kendall Jenner of Chinatown. Let's listen to the trailer.
It's never been a better time to be Asian. I mean, come on, we got BTS now. Even white people know BTS now. That's progress. I'm new to this, boyfriend stuff, right? My girl asked me, she was like, what's your love language? I'm like, what? I was raised by Asian parents. Their love language was verbal abuse.
Jimmy O. Yang, Guess How Much? Looking forward to that. It's out now on Amazon. Brett Goldstein's wonderful podcast, Films to be Buried With, switching networks, joining Will Ferrell's Big Money Players Network. Upcoming guests, Ted Lasso co-star Hannah Waddingham, Chappelle's Show writer and comedian Neil Brennan, and a bunch of others, so that's cool. If you've never heard the podcast, Brett Goldstein brings on guests to discuss the films that have most impacted their lives based on the premise that they recently died. Meanwhile, in podcast land, Dana Carvey and Kevin Nealon, back in the 90s, they were going to do a Hans and Franz movie. That would have co-starred Arnold Schwarzenegger. The movie fell through. However, the script survived and will now be a podcast called The Lost Hans and Franz Movie, featuring Dana Carvey, Kevin Nealon, Conan O'Brien, and Robert Smigel, who co-wrote the original script. That one will be out May 17th. That should be fun. Hey, if you want Bobcat Goldthwait to sign your Police Academy poster, he has a surprise for you. Tell the laugh button. I'll let you in on a secret. If you give me a Police Academy thing to sign, I haven't spelled my name correctly in years on a Police Academy thing.
Hi, my name is TJ, and I host a daily radio show. I have a bunch of friends that join me for it every day, and believe it or not, we all still see hope in humanity. Are you one of these people too? We want to hang out with you. Just search for The TJ Show on your favorite podcasting platform, or join us at thetjshow.com. We would love to have you being hopeful about humanity with us. Here's a quick sample of what the show sounds like. Hey, welcome to The TJ. As you can tell, you need to hear more of it. Search for The TJ Show, and we can't wait to meet you.
I'm running behind today in my real life. Been a very busy day, so buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. You know the rap there. Pete Davidson's Bupkus is out, and the reviews are not good, and Pete Davidson is very likable, and the media enjoys rooting for Pete Davidson, and Pete Davidson usually gets very favorable press. So if they're writing, Bupkus isn't that good, that tells me that it's not good. Haven't seen it yet, but the AV Club did, and they said each installment feels like the pilot for a different and frankly inferior show. Yikes, the first episode chases shock value, while the second plays like a melancholy flashback on an FX dramedy. Then there's the one with Charlie Day, which is the most sitcom-y of the gang. And then there's the one that's supposed to be like the Fast and the Furious, but is more like doofus entourage. Yikes. In a series highlight, Pete Davidson sits down with John Mulaney, who's playing John Mulaney. TV's John Mulaney says, your life is fascinating. I don't know what it's like to live it, but boy, we do have fun watching it. It's a good time. The AV Club says Bupkus is not necessarily a good time, and a lot of it isn't good, period. Yikes. Hey, I hope my former coworker Jamie Foxx is doing okay. You may remember he's been in the hospital. He's still in the hospital, and TMZ said it was serious enough that family members who were out of town came to the hospital. One source told TMZ he's communicating now, and that's good news. His upcoming film, Back in Action, resumed production with doubles playing the role of Jamie Foxx. Jamie was scheduled to host a game show called Beat Shazam. That's now going to move forward with a replacement host. Again, I hope he's doing well, but if they're moving on with a replacement host, that tells you something. Friday, the Sydney Comedy Festival. It's May 5th, a.k.a. Cinco de Mayo. Are they celebrating? No. Dave Thornton has added another show to his chatter, so he must be doing well. And good news for me, there's a clip. Let's listen.
Guys, you know, I only found out about this recently. Did you know that there's fully grown adults out there and they don't drink coffee? Did you know they exist? Yeah, there's always one, isn't there, looking at you smiling, going, I just get up with motivation. Yeah, do you? But this is more of a public service announcement than anything. For people out there who don't drink coffee, I just want to let you know, in the morning when it's early, when the rest of us normal people are getting a coffee, and I say this with all sincerity, I mean this with love, get out of the way. Just because I found myself in a situation pretty early in the morning. I was in the cafe, I'm behind one guy, and he just said this with all the confidence in the world. He just said it to the guy behind the counter. He just said, yeah, g'day mate, can I just get a takeaway hot chocolate? What are you doing? We need to get a coffee. You need to go to the supermarket and get some Cocoa Pops. Like that's not an adult's order, you know? I need chocky in me tum-tum. Nyom, nyom.
He's Dave Thornton. All right, that was fun. I could critique the pacing a little bit. Let's get to it. And I had to get rid of a couple of words that started with F, but that was fun enough. Now, you know what starts Friday in New Zealand? The New Zealand International Comedy Festival. Some of you were like, John, a month of Melbourne, now Sydney, now New Zealand. We don't live in the Southern Hemisphere. Will you stop? Australian-based Japanese comedian Takashi Wakasugi will be performing his show. It's called Welcome to Japan.
And I have a question, Australia. I went to supermarket to get egg, right? And there was no free range egg. It's sold out. And only cage eggs was there, right? The question is, can I buy that cage egg in the situation? I try to get, but that makes me worry. Maybe someone see me. And they might think, oh, this Asian guy is still buying cage egg. Get out. It's not good for the Asian community, right? So I got it, but I cover my cage egg by other products. Then people cannot see my cage egg. I caged cage egg.
The New Zealand Herald has some good questions for him. First question, what are your strongest memories from the first overseas trip you ever took? Takashi said, I don't know why people don't have to dress up in planes. Don't wear skinny jeans when you have a long flight. Worst trip you've ever been on? The Gold Coast of Australia. The beach was beautiful, and I had a super tough comedy gig. Drunk Aussie bogan audiences. Yes, I love the word bogan when it shows up. Any tips for packing for an overseas trip? Always remember to bring a gift. One destination we should see in our lifetime? Okinawa, Japan. It's beautiful. Interesting. The New Zealand Comedy Festival kicks off tonight, runs through May 28th. One of these years, this podcast will be big enough that I'll somehow be able to go to Melbourne, then Sydney, then New Zealand, have the podcast pay for it, and you guys can explain to my wife where I've been for 3 months. Hey, I had to review the show, didn't I? That's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts. Oh, big coronation Saturday. Are you listening to Palace Intrigue? King Charles. They're swearing him in, or whatever they do over there. Palace Intrigue, wherever you get your podcast. Daily comedy news, back in the morning. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your shows. See you then.
Once in a generation, a new British royal dynasty takes shape. Hi, I'm Mark Francis, host of Palace Intrigue, a daily podcast about the royal family, and the only place you can get all the news, gossip, and updates from inside and outside the palace. From Harry and Meghan in California to Kate and William in the UK, along with King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince Andrew, and the whole cast of characters. This coronation will be one for the ages, and we'll bring you every detail on every moment in just a few minutes, every day. Hear Palace Intrigue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.